Imagine this, you're one of the first people to ever set foot in North America maybe 15,000 years ago. You've just crossed over from Asia, trekking across a land bridge that's now underwater. You're expecting wide open plains, maybe some deer or birds, but then you see them, giants. Not just big animals, but beasts so massive and wild they'd make today's grizzly bears look like teddy bears. These were the Megafauna, the extinct giants that greeted the first Americans. And trust me, they were a sight you'd never forget. So what exactly were these monsters? Let's step back into their world and find out. Picture North America at the tail end of the Ice Age. It's cold, sure, with glaciers up north, but down south, it's a mix of grassy plains, thick forests, and winding rivers, a paradise for huge creatures. The first humans, probably small bands of hunters with spears and big dreams, walked right into this zoo of giants. And these weren't your typical zoo animals. We're talking about creatures so impressive they'd leave you wide-eyed and wondering how they even fit on the planet. First up, let's meet the mastodon. If you're thinking elephant, you're close, but crank it up a notch. These shaggy beasts had tusks that could stretch 15 feet, like the length of a pickup truck. They stood about 10 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed up to 10 tons, heavier than a school bus. Fossils show they roamed everywhere from Alaska to Florida, chomping on trees and bushes like living lawnmowers. Now here's the wild part. Archaeologists found a mastodon rib in Washington state with a human-made spear point stuck in it, dated to around 14,000 years ago. That's right, the first Americans might have hunted these tanks. Imagine facing one with just a sharpened stick. Talk about guts. The saber-toothed cat, or smilodon. Forget house cats. This was a lion-sized predator with fangs like steak knives, 7 inches long, perfect for slicing through tough hides. They weighed up to 600 pounds, about the size of a big motorcycle, and hunted in packs across what's now the US and beyond. Their fossils pop up everywhere, especially in places like the La Brea tar pits in California, where hundreds got stuck chasing prey. Picture this, you're gathering berries and suddenly a pack of these fanged freaks bursts out of the bushes. Those teeth weren't just for show. Bite marks on bison and camel bones prove they took down big game. Early humans probably steered clear, but I bet they scavenged whatever smilodon left behind. Let's talk about something even weirder, the giant ground sloth. Today's sloths are slow, tree-hugging cuties, right? Well, their ancient cousins were the opposite. These guys stood 20 feet tall when they reared up, taller than a basketball hoop, and weighed over 4 tons, like a small elephant. They had thick, armor-like skin with little bone nuggets embedded in it, and claws the size of kitchen knives. Fossils from places like Nevada show claw marks scratched into cave walls, proving they were tough customers. The first Americans might have hunted them. Spear marks on sloth bones from Florida hint at it, or at least raided their leftovers. Imagine cooking dinner next to a sloth the size of your car. But it wasn't just these three. North America was bursting with giants back then. There were American lions, bigger than today's African ones, with males pushing 500 pounds, think a linebacker with claws. Then you had short-faced bears, standing 12 feet tall and weighing a ton, fast enough to chase down horses. And don't forget the mammoths, close cousins to mastodons, but even hairier, with curved tusks that could wrap around a small tree. This place was like a prehistoric safari, and humans walked right into the middle of it. So how did these early Americans deal with all this? They weren't clueless, they had tools. By 15,000 years ago, they'd mastered sharp stone spearpoints, like the famous Clovis points found across the US. These weren't toys. Experiments show they could pierce thick hides and even crack bone if thrown right. Picture a group of hunters, maybe 10 or 20 strong, tracking a mastodon. They would work together, shouting and throwing javelins, aiming for the ribs or legs. One good hit could bring down a giant, feeding the whole crew for weeks. Sites like the Manny's mastodon in Washington or the Laner Mammoth Kill in Arizona, where 13 mammoths were found with spear points, proved they pulled it off. These folks were brave, smart, and probably a little crazy. But here's the big question, did they hunt too much? Around 11,000 years ago, almost all these megafauna vanished: mastodons, saber-tooths, sloths, the works. Scientists call it the Pleistocene extinction, and it's a hot debate. Some say humans overhunted them. A mastodon's worth of meat could feed a village, so why not keep going? Others point to the climate. Those glaciers were melting fast, turning forests into plains and drying up rivers. Grass eaters like mammoths struggled, and predators like smilodon lost their prey. Truth is, it was probably both. Humans showed up just as the world was changing, and these giants couldn't keep up. One study even found that 32 megafauna species disappeared within a few thousand years of human arrival. Coincidence? Maybe not. Let's zoom in on one more beast before we wrap up. The dire wolf. Yeah, like in Game of Thrones, but real. These guys were bigger than modern wolves, up to 150 pounds, the size of a big dog, and roamed in packs across North America. Their fossils, especially from La Brea, show jaws strong enough to crush bone. They hunted bison and horses, and their howls probably echoed through the night while humans huddled by campfires. Did we fight them off? Maybe. Spear marks on dire wolf bones suggest run-ins, but they might have just scavenged our kills too. Either way, they went extinct around the same time as the others, another victim of a changing world. So imagine you're that early American again. You're surrounded by these giants, mastodons trumpeting, saber-toothed snarling, sloths lumbering past. It's thrilling, terrifying, and totally unreal. But here's the kicker. These people didn't just survive, they thrived. They figured out how to hunt, how to hide, and how to turn a wild land into home. And those giants, they left behind bones that tell their story. Bones we're still digging up today, from Texas to Alaska. What's crazy is how fast it all ended. In just a few thousand years, North America went from a land of titans to something closer to what we know now. Sure, we've still got bears and wolves, but nothing like those Ice Age beasts. It makes you wonder, if you could time travel back, would you grab a spear and join the hunt, or just sit back and watch the show? Me, I'd probably be too busy gawking to do much else.